You know that product idea you've been sitting on? The one that you can't stop thinking about, but you have no clue how to bring to market. What if I told you you don't have to manufacture it or build a company or even launch a website? What if someone else, say a global brand, paid you to bring it to life? Today, that's what this guest does for a living. Luanne is a licensing ninja. She doesn't just help innovators protect their ideas, she helps them profit from them. From toys to tech to tools, she knows what gets companies to say, we want it, we'll pay you, and we'll handle the rest. If you've wanted to turn your big idea into mailbox money, this episode might just change the game. Today, we'll break down what licensing really is, how to pitch your product, and what makes a company say yes to your idea. Let's get into it.
Hi.
The first thing I want to actually talk about, the first thing I want to ask is beforehand, we were talking about this idea of Hollywood business versus normal business. I would love for you to just for you and Brandon, just kind of go back and forth on what the difference between real business is and the fantasy of what business is.
Well, and I think, Brandon, you started the conversation before we went on air. You started it saying that people see it and like 2 hours later, it's real life, right? Is that what you were kind of saying?
Yeah, I mean, you go through a Hollywood movie and every business, someday, works out by the end of the episode or the end of the show, and they have, the nice car and the big house and they're moving up, and it always shows it always, they go through a little struggle, it's a little hard, then it works every time. And then they're just, traveling, having fun, whatever this, whatever that. But it's never really like that. I mean, there's very few cases where someone has an idea, executes on it, and it works the first time. It's a grind for a very long period of time, sometimes a decade or so, and then they have this overnight success, and that's when we see like things like just take off. Even like Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, they all went through this where they grinded for years and years and years. They were a no name. They were a bad idea. Don't invest in that. And then all of a sudden, boom, it hit and it became a global name. But I think Amazon almost went under like 14 times. They were, so these are like real struggles that have to be faced, and it's an ongoing thing. And, I just don't think most people are really prepared for that. And it's heartbreaking to see them figure it out after they're all in.
So what you're saying is because you have the blessing or the curse that you see an inventor right away, right? Because an inventor gets an idea, and I think his favorite part is to come to the product developer. I mean, they love it. They sit down, they see it come to life. They have so much hope, right? They just see this incredible future. And then they have spent thousands and it didn't work, and then they have to spend more because people forget, right, that it's never been done before, or if it was already done, then they wouldn't have invented it, right? So they forget like all those challenges. So I always tell my inventors when I speak in a group, I always tell the story. We all know Shark Tank, right? And so for me, I feel like Shark Tank kind of they did good and bad for us, right? But people forget it's a TV show, right? So in real life, they're showing these deals, but when the cameras go off, you guys, very few deals really truly make it. And one blessing I've had in life is in the last probably 5 years, I've had several, if not more, Shark Tank clients because they get their money and then they're still stuck because they got funded, but nobody showed them the ropes. Nobody helped them go to the next level because you guys, you can throw money at anything, but it doesn't mean it'll make money, right? And so I laugh because I get them because now they're like, I really need somebody to help me. So I used to say, I don't know if you saw this a little while ago, but they had a commercial and they had I think it was Mark Cuban and Barbara Corkin, which I love. She's so great. She'll pick up the phone for you, you guys. She's really lovely. And so they were on, and they were with their two companies, the owners of their two companies, and they're standing in Target. And I think Barbara says, wow, can you imagine? It was just about a year ago that you were on our stage with your new product, and now you're on the shelf at Target. And I try to remind my clients, you guys, when they were on the show, they already had inventory, they already had products, and they've probably been at it for, I don't know, 3 to 6 years, because that's kind of it. And now you've got all the money in the world, all the fame and connection, and it still took you a freaking year. I'm like, come on. Like, I've had product, fortunately, knock on wood, that I've had product that if we like it, we can make it happen. I had Target in a phone call give me an end cap for 8 products. I just had to go find 8 products that were the same, like in the same category. Never could pull it off. Never could pull it off. But I still laugh and I go, are you serious? Mark Cuban and Barbara, I thought, would have been able to pick up the phone. They would have been on the shelves in 4 months, right? And it's not. So like you said, it's not easy. And I always tell my clients, I always play the fight song. I don't know if you've ever heard it. And I can't sing, but I play it often because it basically is like, you get down, you get up again, you get down, you get up again, because it's a long haul. So I think that, like you said, I think it's not just a Hollywood thing. I think it's just Hollywood grabs on to, the shows and wants to show you this instant success. But I think anyone will tell you, everybody paid dues. But I'm excited because I think today I can share some secrets so that we're not poor by the end. We have some ways to do it with no money down, or what I call no money inventing. They still have to come to you, Brandon. So, I mean, we still need that spot. But I think there's some things I can teach people, having done this for 34 years. I've learned a ton on kind of tricks that make companies play better. And you guys, things change every year, right? Now, I remember when Kickstarter started and things, all of a sudden, I was getting companies that were like, how well did it do on Kickstarter? And then I'd say, well, it did this. And they go, well, who cares? It was their friends. And I'd be like, well, do you care or don't you care? Do you believe it or don't you believe it? And now they're making us jump through hoops. Now people are believing in the Kickstarter and the piece. And that's because now they want you to invest. Remember, before you used to be able to go and get a licensing deal and the company would invest every penny. Now they're saying you prove it and then we'll take it for you. So things change every day. So I'm excited to get a chance to kind of share some things that I see consistently working. And I think it'll be good for your inventors to kind of have a realistic understanding of the chances of success.
Yeah.
Do you tell them, Brandon, do you tell them it's like a 2% success rate when you sit down with your
I've never said there's a 2% success rate, but I will reference that Apple has like a 30% success rate and they're the best in the world. So
that's interesting. That's way more optimistic than what I do because
like I'm like, look, just so you understand, like we are gambling here. There's no other way to put it. This is a gamble, but you only have to get lucky one time. So you can keep revising till it hits. And I think that's really the difference of like entrepreneur and an entrepreneur, right? Because I don't know any successful entrepreneur that's like, oh, I only had one company and we started with the right idea and we just went with it and it's been the same this whole time. Like, I've never heard that story in my life. It's always like, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. I tried this, we learned some stuff, and on the 3rd or 5th attempt, we got it out there and we took off, and everything just worked out for us and we got lucky. And that's how luck works. It's like, you got to keep playing the game. You can't go to a slot machine and expect to win your first pool. But if you had a slot machine that you only had to win one time, it's a different kind of game that you're playing.
You guys, there's a company out there called Pillow Cube. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but you guys, they started out as like creative content. So they were really good at making things go viral. And so the founder created a square, it looks like a cube of like styrofoam type thing. And they called it the Pillow Cube. And they started selling it through these viral things. They sold $35 million worth, like within like a year and a half. But they still came to me because once that ends, what do you do? Right? So where do you go from there? So they were still looking to get into retailers and to grow it. So you're right. Even if you hit it big and got lucky, you're still going to hit a point where like you have to pivot and move. And for me, doing licensing, mostly I do help inventors now try to do purchase orders, try to get purchase order interest. And I want to explain that a little more because there's a trick to all that. But I say that every day when we go in. If I go and I pitch your ideal, I had a client spend $1 million, finally came and hired me. I took it to buyers first because that's what I always do. Because if a buyer will pay for it, then so will their customers, right? If they're confident, if they're willing to spend $100,000 in inventory, they're comfortable, their client. And they know their clients, their customers. You don't. You got a brand new product. You've never been in that world. So I feel like nobody can give you better advice than a buyer. That's just my take on life. And so I always start there. But my client had spent $1 million.
When you say buyer, I just want to clarify. Are you talking about like a retail buyer or the consumer?
Yes. Because to me, even if I was going to take my product direct myself, and set up a website and do it myself, which is extremely expensive. Even if I was going to do that, I still don't know my consumers like a buyer who's been in the industry forever, right? And so I always pick the brains of buyers because if they'll throw money at it, then you know you're on to something. And if they won't, if you ask right, they will tell you why they won't, or they will tell you what you have to do to make it work because they already know all the products in that industry. And so that's the reason I absolutely love working with buyers. But I was just going to tell you, this guy who spent $1 million, who came to me, I took it right to buyers right off the bat. And they were like, well, why does it do this? Why doesn't it do this? And I don't want to disclose the whole story, just in fair privacy. But, and so I went back to my client. We went back to his product developer. And they said, okay, for $30,000, we'll adjust it. At 30, he's already spent $1 million. And they were such an incredible company. They did it for free for me, because I had two companies that wanted to look at the product and they wanted him to succeed. And that sounds like something that you would do. Not that you're going to give away all your services, but you're there to support your clients. And so I was really lucky to get him it for free so we could make presentations.
Yeah, our whole thing is design that gets results. Like we do a satisfaction guarantee, and we make sure the clients are happy with our work before they pay. So
that's why I'm sitting here, because you have always been really good to my clients, or to your clients that you've sent me. Yeah, you've been really good with that, and you're up straight up front and direct about what your capabilities are, because you guys you talk about the different types of prototyping, right? That you can prototype in your garage, and then you can pay a guy to prototype, and then you can prototype for manufacturing, because there is a difference, right? So that's what's really great, is that you're really direct and forward, and not everybody needs all of it, right? Sometimes I can license sometimes off of your garage version. Sometimes I have to have better proof of concept, so I only need Brandon for you to make them something. And then sometimes I got to take it all the way to ready for manufacturing, because nobody's going to buy it unless they know there's a profit. And so you got to quote that for a profit to know if it's got some potential. So that's kind of how I use prototyping.
Yeah, and the great thing though about what we do is we help them work through the outcome that they want to get and find a simpler way to produce and design it. So there's a lot of back and forth. We do it directly with the client. It's not like, hey, we've made all these changes for you. It's like, let's do this with you and really make sure that they're involved and understand the choices that we're making and why, and letting them be a part of that. And like, here's the pros and cons to each direction. So then when they go,
my gosh, the girl I talked to, the woman you sent me last night, we talked to, that's her favorite part, is that she got to sit with you and design something. So I'm gonna go one step further with that a little bit, because I am so blown away how many people don't do homework before they sit down and pay you to draw up the product they like. And I want to say honestly, as painful as it is, I get all my work from referrals. You guys, I have been around long enough now. I have attorneys, I have product developers who send me business because we've done business together and we just all worked well together. And I will bet you 1 out of 2, I can pull up something while they're talking to me. And my clients normally come after they've spent about $65,000 in prototyping and patents and all that. That's an average of 65,000. And I want to say an average of somewhere between 3 and 6 years they've put into it by the time they find me. And, you know, when I'm sitting on the phone with somebody, and I don't even care, I just had it happen recently where a guy took his retirement money, paid for the patent, $15,000, and I pulled up a product that she didn't even catch. The patent attorney didn't even catch. And there we're like, okay, show me something original. And it's that, Joel, it's cover your face and cry, because at that point you want to die for these people, because I'm not cheap. You know, and they don't have, I'm not taking their money. I mean, at this point, how can I even help you? So it really is really, 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 really important that an inventor spends more time in the beginning doing homework. And I'm blown away and shocked how many people say, I swear to God, I've looked at everything. And I go, I look every day, all day for the same product. So I may be working 5 or 6 products at a time. I still pull up every single day, because even with what GP chat, or I don't care who you work with, it's your, did I say that wrong? Yeah, I don't care who you work with. I don't care how you do it. You're going to find something one day and you're going to go, why didn't I see this before? Because it is a big world out there. And, you know, so before I spend a dime, I would be doing that. And that means even you. I hate to say it, but even you.
Oh, absolutely. I am completely agree.
The other thing, I'm sorry,
yeah.
and I know you do this. I'm almost positive you do this, but you know to look at their patent, if they have one, to make sure you're designing it accordingly. And that's the reason I go, okay, let's talk no money down, guys. Let's just jump right in there. Like, if you have an idea, you do your homework. And I'm talking everything. Everybody thinks that if they haven't seen it on the shelf at Walmart, it's not there. Well, that is so wrong nowadays, right? I mean, seriously, put in a fart cushion and it's going to show up, right? I mean, on Amazon. I mean, you make it. I swear to God, we've played with that. So I want you to hunt everything, including Google patents. So put in Google patents and then write what your product is. And you'd be shocked. I mean, I've only had one invention in my life, and I pulled it up and there were like 15 versions of it. Nothing ever made it to market, but I can't patent what's already been done. And you don't want to, you don't want to sell it because you're infringing. So you got nothing, walk away. So I believe you come up with a fantastic idea and then you research the shit out of it. And if you can, I would get buyer feedback, which I can do that for you, but I would send it over. So you guys, I love what's called a sell sheet. So the sell sheet is the simplest way for me to look at the picture of what it is and then look at the features. And everybody tries to tell me, and then, oh, but I got a great video, and I don't care. You have 2 seconds when they pick on that email, right? You got a buyer's attention for 2 seconds. So I want that image to go, oh, wow, I haven't seen that before. Or what makes this better? So you take that sell sheet. There's not a buyer in the world that's going to steal your idea. You guys, buyers make $45,000 to $90,000. They are not going to run back and steal this concept. So I don't even care if it's protected, but an attorney would be dying if I said that to you out loud. So I'm just letting you know that's just my opinion on things. But if you're not comfortable, don't show it to a buyer. But if you got it to a buyer and a buyer said, look, we love this, you guys, that's a letter of intent. A letter of intent, you go to the bank and you get your funding and you just started a company with no money down. So I'm going to tell my favorite story in the world because I've been extremely blessed. I had a woman who sent me a toilet paper roll. So imagine she's got her toilet paper roll and she shoved pantyhose in it. And she used like a half of the roll. So imagine it's kind of thick, but it's thin, little. And she stapled it and she sent it to me. So she wanted a container so that she could take her pantyhose when she traveled. Now, this has been years ago when we all had to wear pantyhose. Now you'll be lucky if you even find pantyhose. But so she sends it to me. You guys, I took this pantyhose idea And I called on probably 5 packaging companies, and I got one out of Atlanta that for free made me a prototype. Because you guys, in order to sell a product, you got to know if you're going to make money. Even if you do a licensing deal, they want to make money. So if you know what it's worth going in, then you know what you're asking for. You know whether you're getting ripped off or you're not. So you really kind of want to know that. So I got this product development company to play with it. It took them about a month. And you guys, it was just a little shorter than my lipstick tube and a little fatter. It was freaking awesome. It was the coolest product I've ever seen in my life. And there wasn't a person I showed it to who didn't love it. But you guys, in the industry, there's only 5 pantyhose manufacturers, right? So when you're selling a product, you're going to go, if you want a licensing deal, you're going to go to the guys who gets an advantage from your product. So mine is the pantyhose guys, right? They want to put it in a package and they want it to be cool. You guys are so young and you're men, so you probably don't remember the egg. Do you remember the egg? Pantyhose used to come in an egg? No. You guys, they owned 51% of the market. So that's huge. 51% of the market, they owned a pantyhose because they put it in this really cool plastic egg. But it was huge. It was really big. But it was a gimmick they had. So they had legs and eggs, right? So it was like this really cool thing, and women all bought them, and we thought they were really cool. Well, when I went out to do my job, so when I want a licensing deal, I want to know who are all those top players, all right? And so I knew there were 5. I also like to know who's the biggest and who's the smallest, right? I love to learn that if I can. So my trick for learning that is either trade associations or trade publications. Every industry, I don't care if you're porno, bridal, or whatever, there's an association for you to go to. So if you go to a trade association, and you guys, I'm like the queen of conversation. So I like to get on the phone, because if you get on the phone, that woman knows more or man knows more than anything I can find in print. And I can get there really fast. So if I say, hey, look, and in this case, that's exactly what I did. I said, I'm trying to find the manufacturers and pantyhose manufacturers, and I would love to know, like, what percentage of the markets they own. Oh my gosh, she was thrilled. So I got all 5 of them, finding out that the legs, the egg, was owned by Sara Lee. So that's why they make queen size, because they feed you pies and cakes. And now they sell you queen size pantyhose. But they were the biggest players. And so you guys, believe it or not, Sara Lee called and made us an offer for $2 million. $2 million, but they were going to put it in a box. They just didn't want it to compete with their product. And so you guys, normally, I just want to teach the lessons as we go. So if I'm getting, slow me down or change me if you want. But I think teaching the lesson really helps. So normally having these 5, Sara Lee owned 51%. And then it went in smaller pieces, almost about equal. I always start with this little guy, because I don't want to screw up what I say to the big player, right? Because he's the guy I really want to sell, right? But if I start here, and it happens all the time, when I start pitching it to the small guy, he'll tell me every reason why it won't work, or if they've seen something before. Or I've actually even had somebody come back with an exact product with the patent attached. Like they've already been there, done that. So if I know that from the little guy, then like you said, it's like refixing the prototype. I can now restructure what my marketing strategy is. I know, like I told you with my guy with the $1 million, now I know how to go back and fix the product so it will sell. So that's how I work. But this case, I got lucky. They just happened to find me. And so they offered us $2 million cash. And I will tell you, I was pretty young in my business, and I was at Disney doing cocktails, right? I'm like, because I make a percentage. I was so proud. It was like I had done a couple big deals before that, but this was a really cool opportunity. I thought I had hit a home run. My client said no. She was in sales and she wanted a royalty, right? I know, my face dropped just like yours did, but she felt like, and her valid point, she was like, by the time I pay taxes and I pay my percentage to you, I feel like I'm done and I think it's worth more. Well, I was probably in that product about a year at that point. I had probably taken me a year to get to that point. And I thought, what the hell do I do now? And so, you guys, I started pitching it to retailers. So I went to like Winn-Dixie, 7-Eleven, all of those stores. And you guys, I just got lucky. Winn-Dixie and 7-Eleven both loved it. I already knew there was $1 profit per unit because remember I told you I got it manufactured. I knew, I got a prototype. I got it. I knew the manufacturing. And you guys, this thing cost $1 million for the packaging machinery. So somebody would have to invest $1 million plus what they paid us, plus inventory to take it to market. And that's why you want a licensing deal because you don't want to spend all that money, right? You want to get paid every time it's sold, which is the goal of a licensing deal. So when I do a licensing deal, I want money down. And then, because you guys, it takes like 18 months to 2 years to really get it on the market. And then you get paid on the sales. So you don't want to pull it off and hand it to somebody and then get nothing for 2 years. So I try really hard to get a good size down payment. So in this case, because I was so cocky, I was like, I have 21 million pairs sold in letter of intent. Mm-hmm. And so I took it because I was running out. I didn't know where to go. So I found a company that was looking for another product. So like a marketing company. It wasn't a pantyhose company. It was another company. They gave us $4.1 million down payment. And they gave us $35 million total royalties. And so you guys, it was the greatest lesson I had ever learned because I realized that I had put together a fake business. So today, because now the new generation, everybody wants to run the business. Before, when I started, they were like, heck no, I just want to get my mail check, right? I want to get my mailbox check. But nowadays, if I had that 21 million letter of intent, I could go to any bank or a factoring company is what they call it. And for 2 to 3%, they would lend against this purchase orders and you would be able to start your own business and off you went. So you don't have to have all of that cost. And so that value for me was understanding how important that buyer was. Because that buyer not only tells me what's wrong, what to fix, what's worked, what hasn't worked, but this is what it would take for me to want it. And to me, I don't know how to get any more information than that, right? So let's go back to what we said. So step 1, you got a great idea and you search the hell out of it. Number 2, if you have the nerve to do without a patent, I would show it. They're not going to sign an NDA. I'm just telling you up front, don't even waste your time. But my theory is don't show it to your manufacturer who has the capability of stealing it. You show it to the buyer who makes $45,000 to $60,000 a year, and you just ask their feedback. They don't know if you have money. They don't know if it's patented. They don't care. They're just going to tell you, I like it, I don't like it, whatever. If you can do one of that would be life-changing for you. And then you go back to you. That's when I would come to you, Brandon, and say, okay, look, I need to know how much is it going to cost for you to prototype this for me? Because you guys, if you don't need to have prototyping, then don't do it. But you might need to have CAD files for manufacturing because you decide you want to do it yourself. So now you do need Brandon. So you have all of the control, right? If you own the power. And so if now I can come back and say, okay, how much is this going to cost me to get this done? And then you can say to them, which is so exciting, I think, for you, is you can go, look, I can do what you want at this cost because nobody knows this. They forget this part. That product, if it's going to sell for $100, has to be a fifth, which means that it has to be $20, which means that it has to be $20 with tariffs, with shipping, with everything. But if you sit down with Brandon and you don't have a clue what your product's going to sell for and you don't have an idea what it needs to cost, Brandon, you're going to build it because you're a prototyper and you're brilliant and you're going to come up with a way to solve the problem. But solving that problem may cost $200 a unit and you don't have a product, right? So they've invested all this money and they don't know that. But if you knew that going in, or they understood that, to say to you, look, I need this to sell for $20. You know what I mean? I need the cost to be at $20, which means I'd really like you to be able to prototype it so that it's $15 a unit. Then you go, okay, then we need to use this material instead of this material, or we need to use this instead of this. And I know you have the capability to make that happen. And if you do it before there's a patent, where you can't go around the way this guy thinks he's invented it, right? Because how many people are truly engineers when they go, oh, well, I'm going to use this. And now you've patented, I don't know, I've seen it happen with magnets, right? We've used a magnet, and now you can't get around the magnet, and you got to have a magnet that costs $800, you know, whatever. You get my point, right? So that, to me, if I was going to invent, that's the steps I would do. I am also cheap, not cheap to hire me, but I am cheap in general. I would look at your numbers, and I would look at my patent. I would do a provisional patent, which you could file yourself for $65, but the only way I would advise you to do that is if you have a real attorney review it. But there is tons of videos on how to do it yourself. It doesn't need a lot of coverage, because you guys, in a patent, what's valuable are the claims. And the cool part about a provisional is you get to file the description and what your product is, but no claims. And the claims are what people steal. So you don't want it out. So it gives you an entire year before you have to tell people the magic sauce, which is really cool, because if you file that provisional and they come to you, Brandon, and you go, I'm sorry, you didn't tell me I have to make this for $1. Now we have to change how we do it. Then you have time to change the magic sauce before you do it at the end. And so now you've got, and realistically, you guys, a provisional is $2,000, $2,500 if you use a real attorney. But there are plenty of ways, like I said, to do it for $65. So now you know, when you sit down with your family that you're going to hit up for all the money that you need, you actually have a business plan, right? You have a way to say, look, I found a prototyper and he can do me this type that I need, because I already know what the world wants. And I also can take that information and go, you know what? If this buyer would genuinely buy this, do I want to run a company? Maybe I want to go that way, and maybe I don't. Maybe I just want the licensing deal. But now you can put numbers to everything, right? So now when I come back to you, I go, okay, Brandon, this is the cost. And all I need is a simple prototype so I can get this licensing deal, right? Then I know I can file a $65 provisional as long as an attorney has looked at it. So let me tell you how that works in a licensing deal. You guys, in a licensing deal, if your product has merit and you have a provisional and a company wants your product, they'll pay the balance. So they'll pay all the big expense to add the claims. So a provisional in real life for an attorney is somewhere around $2,500. A utility is $7,000 to $8,000. So you file a provisional for $2,500, and then in a year you got to convert. So you got to cough up that rest of that money. That's $6,000. That's $7,000. Sometimes, what?
That seems a little low from what I've experienced, especially once you figure all the attorney fees in. Like, I've seen this play out in real life where someone got a provisional patent, like you're talking about, and when they sold it, the company that bought them out put another $100,000 in patent fees. I mean, that was all the claims to protect it.
They probably made it international. That's what would make the difference. Yeah, is they made it international. But think about that. Because you had a licensing opportunity, they paid all that money, that $100,000. You didn't have to put up any more money. So let's just go back for a minute. You could be in it for $65. You could be in it for no prototype, or you could be in it for a minimal prototype, because now you already have a buyer lined up. And now you're going to take these assets and you're going to bring value when you go to your manufacturer, and you're going to be like, okay, look, I already know this company wants to carry it. They want it. Now you've got somebody's attention, right? And now you can do it. And if they say no, then you go, who cares? I'm going to go to the bank and borrow it and do it myself, right? Or if one buyer will do it, I joke, 5 sharks, not everybody does it, but usually you can get one, you can egg the second, You know what I mean? You may not get all 5, but you might be able to get, right? If you have one buyer who's in, you might be able to talk to another buyer.
Yeah, yeah.
So
The other thing is, if I tell people, if you can prove sales, then you can get funding always. Like if you can show that there's sales, like you were saying, I like the idea of using a factoring company. Uh, that's that's cool. A lot of people don't talk about using factoring companies for launching products. I've seen it in other industries but I see a lot of people just trying to get loans or investors behind it. But that's cool.
yeah, but you know what? If you had, like I did, I had 7-Eleven and Winn-Dixie in writing put that they
Mhm.
love this product, and as long as it comes out this way, when we see your final one, we'll take it. If you have that, you got an investor all day long.
Right.
Yeah, you know that you can get your money. The other thing that's really cool, and I don't think people really realize this, you could get your manufacturer to carry it, which is really fun. Now you've got nobody else in. So I usually ask my manufacturers. I always ask because I think people, I'm not shy, and I'm always protecting my inventor. So I have no problem saying, look, if I come to you and I get an order, for 10,000 units, and will you help us get, if we get paid in 30 days, will you wait to get paid in 30 days? And they're like, yeah. In fact, most of them will amortize your tooling cost.
Yeah,
So
that I've
yeah,
seen.
so if you got 30,000 in tooling costs and you think, okay, I got a purchase order and I've got a way to pay for my inventory, how do I pay for 30 grand? Well, you got a manufacturer who wants your business. And let me tell you, tariffs suck, but man, does China want your business. So they're really accommodating, So I would always ask, right? It can't hurt to ask. And so now you don't have any money in it. Why are you laughing at me? Am I
Well, what size?
long-winded? I'm
Uh,
sorry.
No, I'm laughing because it's true that China really wants your business.
They do.
They
They
really
do.
want your business. And frankly, once you've got the product and you're quick to market, they
Yeah.
can't copy it. Yes, they can copy it. But if you're quick to market and you're the first to market and people know you, it doesn't matter how much they copy it. You're going to be the one on top. It's
You do have that opportunity. I've seen it happen where they've snuck in because they can price you better. But for the most part, that's what you want is the footing. I laugh now because I have a product that's a part of a product that's pretty darn cool, and it's been at it forever. But they're at the point, because it's a high tech product. They're at a point. It's a consumer high tech product, so they're at the point where they're going to test like 1,300 samples, and I I opened the door for some really big partners for them in their industry, but everybody wants to see it work. So they went to order 1,300. And you guys, the boxes for the 1,300 should run less than, like, I don't know, I think they're like 80 cents a piece in normal life. But for 1,300, now they're making a special run. So maybe you would pay $1.25. Well, this time, because things, when you buy short like that, I think the total for 1,300 was going to be like $7,000. And we're like, are you freaking kidding us? So I called my girlfriend who works with a really close firm, and they're like dying for the work. They're like, we'll give them to you for 40 cents a box, because they're just so grateful, because they feel like if they get you locked in at 1,300, you're going to start working with them. They cut you a deal. So China right now is really cooperative. And I feel bad for the whole world, because we have no say. Us little guy is just trying to keep going, right? And they're the same thing, right? They're feeding families, and we're listening to politicians. But
yeah.
but
What quantity do you think is a good place to start when you're trying to do, I guess, get the manufacturer side to help you out? Like, are you seeing people come over with 10 units, 10,000 units? Like, you said 1,300. Like, what quantities does it really start to make sense to go? Okay, this is a big enough purchase order that people are going to give me their time of day.
I do think it. Okay, in reality, in reality, if I'm doing a licensing deal, okay, I'll give you an example. When I do a licensing deal, I told you I always start with a buyer. So I had a product recently. I took it to the Container Store. They loved it, absolutely loved it. And I said, no kidding, what would that look like? Meanwhile, I went immediately to a manufacturer that I knew loves new products and would like this product, especially having the Container Store on board. But that manufacturer said to me, with the way things are in our economy today, unless somebody's going to do 10,000 units, we're not risking it. I used to think, and I still think there's places that 1,000 units would be fine, but it depends what you're looking at. Are you looking at a licensing deal? Are you looking at taking it yourself? And those are the factors that are going to make a difference, right? I think if you were going to do 1,000 units on your own, I think a manufacturer would be happy to help you get that. But if your amortization, your tooling is going to cost too much to offset the other, you can't start with 1,000 anyway. So that's what I look for, right? When I look at something, I go, okay, here's tooling cost, here's cost per unit, what's going to be my break even, and then that's where I know when my client is in a safe spot to try to do it on his own. Make sense?
When you do manufacturing, do you tend to manufacture with one manufacturer per product, or do you like to spread it out for protecting the
I hate that. Yeah, I don't believe in all that protecting the IP crap. The reason I don't believe that is because I've been in Washington fighting for patent rights. If they're going to steal you, they're going to steal you. You guys, it's just you have to accept that in life. We all get married hoping nobody cheats, but it just happens. I think it happens way less than people think. In my career, I have not seen enough that were horrifying. But the ones you see are terrible, right? It's just like seeing the worst plane crash. We don't see a lot, but when you see it, it's horrifying. So I'm not saying that it's okay to steal. I'm just saying it's not normally consumer products that we see a lot of theft. Okay. I do think software we see more. I always bid 3 people. I always bid 3. I always bid overseas as well as in the US, because sometimes there's trade-offs, right? So, if your product has plenty of margin, then if you don't have to deal with exports and tariffs and all that, you got room then to do it in the US. Then I'm all about doing it in the US. I would like to share something that I think is kind of cool. And I just learned this for myself just recently. I am looking to help a nonprofit. And that's kind of where I want to head my future give back to the world type thing. Is I have this belief that Susan Coleman, who did Cancer Society, made a fortune on product, right? And all these little nonprofits out there, they can't afford to do all that. They don't have all the backing she had or whatever. So my thought, and I have a company right now that I'm working with, that I am creating a national social media campaign so that it's big, right? So it's enough to get your sponsors on board and to get things on board. And they have like a mascot that teaches kindness. And so I want to make a stuffed animal that goes into boutiques. Okay. And so this is my strategy because it's a good one. So listen, but everybody says to me, oh my gosh, when I sit with my client, I just want to see it in Target. That's all I care about. Or I want to see it in Costco's. And I'm like, you guys, boutique margins are so much bigger. And there's like 25 to 35,000 boutiques. And so I want to put my stuffed animal in gift boutiques because then there's enough margin for everybody to get their piece and get a beautiful gift that's different and unique. It's not sitting on every shelf. And so that's my strategy. But what was really fun is because I work my own system, I pitched it to reps. So you guys in the industry, if you have a product, you can go through a rep or you can go through a distributor. A rep is someone that takes a percentage. So they go around to all of the boutiques in the area. They may go to some of the big retailers, but normally they go door to door. And so when you sell to a boutique, you get like 10 orders. Usually you have to spend $150 or you have to spend $200, which is why everybody wants to go to Target where they're going to spend hundreds of thousands. But when you times that by 35,000 people, you're starting to get somewhere. So I like to reach out to a rep to see what they think of the product. Would they carry it? For the same reason I like a buyer. If they think they can pitch it to their boutiques, you got somebody who's experienced. And so I did that in this case. And I like research. So I found the woman who won the award for the best gift buyer for the year. Sold the most loved. I tracked her down. And so I showed her my product and I told her that I'm doing this for a nonprofit, and they loved it. But you know what she did? She partnered me with the largest selling high end stuffed animal manufacturer, who's talking now about funding it to help this nonprofit so that they have a chance to give back, and you get to partner with someone fabulous, right? And so, you guys, I've always loved that. I had a bingo box 100 years ago, and I went out the door looking for partnerships. So I love that, because you guys, when you do a licensing deal, money down, 5%, it's usually somewhere between 3 and 5%. Um, and you get your royalty, and you usually always ask for minimums guaranteed, right? You guys want to know, you want to make sure that they're going to promise you sales, because if you don't get that, you guys, they could stop and never do your product. You'll never get money. You have to fight and pull it back, which you can. And I've seen that done, but you want minimum. So I had a sweet guy. We sold a tool. We got him 25,000 down. He got 75,000 guaranteed every year. And then it would climb, but their guaranteed was 75. He got killed in a car accident 2 days later. He was in his 70s, but he left his wife all this money. So now, if the company had actually produced the product like they were supposed to, that 75 could have gone to who knows what. But she could bury him knowing that she had this additional $75,000 for 17 years, which I know it's shocking, but at least I feel like at least we did. He tried himself the year before, and I just got lucky and got him a deal. So you want that minimums guaranteed. And you guys, there's a product out there that I worked with, this woman who, she got 100 grand a year for 2 years, and then she took the product back. She used her 200 grand and launched her company, and now she's doing millions with it, right? So you want that. The other thing is that I love infomercial companies if you have a fighting chance. So if your product is one that passes, so you guys, infomercial companies test it online, then they test it to a bigger audience, then they test it to film, and then if that works, they love it. They only pay like 2 to 4%, but you guys, they'll guarantee millions of units. So they give you, I'm putting you to sleep, I'm sorry. So they'll give you millions of units up front, and then they take it into the stores. So that's a really fun way to succeed as well. All right, I'll slow down, sorry.
No, you
No,
don't
you're
need to
great. You're just throwing so much information. I don't
know,
want to say
it's
anything.
a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, I
Is
know.
it too
You're
much?
which is great. That's what I think the viewers need to hear about. You know, you want to hear all sides of the puzzle, the good and the bad. I don't want people to think that it's like not worth it, because for a lot of people it is. But we see so many people that jump into it thinking it's a for sure thing, and like you said, I don't want to see people dumping their life savings into it.
2% success rate. 2%.
Yeah, but it is great when you do see it play off. I mean, I've definitely seen my clients make a lot more money than spend with me by magnitudes. But it's not
Everybody.
yeah, it's not everybody. And so that motivates me to like, okay, this isn't. But yeah, I mean, and a lot of it's just people not understanding that they have to learn how to be a CEO if they want to launch a company. And like, you have to be realistic. Like, it's a skill set you have to develop, and you have to be willing to develop it. And I've been, since I was 18, 19 years old, I've been reading every book I can on building a company and developing myself to manage others and understand value, how to build value. Like, all these things have to be learned. The product is great. That's important, but it's not everything. And like, to your point, you got, like, your industry is just on sharing the idea. You have an entire, and you're like super, it's a super valuable piece of, and it's just on one piece, which I think it just says a lot about how much goes into building a company and how important it is to understand all the little things in detail.
You know, it's funny because I was asked to do a TED Talk and I didn't do it, but I was asked to do a TED Talk, and I always said I was going to start my TED Talk off with, when you start a company and you lay it all out, which means a great product, you got a great team so you can get an investor, that man is going, or that woman is going to fire you within the first 5 years. It's statistically 1 out of 5 make it past that 5-year mark. So all your investors are going to ultimately replace you. So you built a company to literally not own it anymore if you're successful. And if you're not, then you got more headache than it's worth. And that's why I love licensing, because now you get to give it to somebody who's really successful. And we've learned in the last 10 years that if you don't introduce new products, your company will go down, right? So the guys who are already doing great, and they used to wait for the one big, huge run. Now they know they got to do 10,000 units off of this, 200,000 units off of that. They can't get those million, shot products anymore. And so those people need you, believe it or not, they need you. And, my guy I told you about the $1 million, we had him on the phone with, Black and Decker, Stanley Black and Decker, and we were talking to them about a royalty deal. And my client jumped up and said he wanted $1 million down, which just scares the heck out of everybody, which is really a big jump. And their representative said, we have a gentleman who did a licensing deal with us who's now buying an island. So he's like, keep in mind, your money comes from the royalty. Don't get so greedy up front, because they have to put all that money in. I'm not against taking money down, but you want to structure a deal. But if that guy could buy an island off of, I think it was like a tool, you guys, there's money to be made in licensing, and you don't do anything but sit home and go to your mailbox. Do we even go to our mailbox?
That's a big difference, right? Like, a lot of our clients are in their senior years and they want to sit back and enjoy it. And not everybody wants to run a business and deal with the headache of it, because it is a very stressful, it's an emotional roller coaster on a business. Any way you look at it, like, whether you like it or not, it's an emotional roller coaster. You have big wins, you've got big losses, you got to make payroll, you don't know where the next checks come in, you got to make sacrifices one month, you're going and traveling the next. Like, it's so crazy up and down. And, the market's doing great and everyone's celebrating. And then the next time the economy turns and now your team's grown, they're in the upturn. And like, you're always having to deal with this, at all levels, maybe some more than others, but it's a constant up and down, up and down. And some people love it, some people do not. My dad was someone that was like, he's tried a business himself. Like, he had a little company and he's like, it wasn't for me. He went and worked for NASA, It's a different type of personality. It takes the right type of personality.
Well, in my world, what hurts the most, what we see the most happen is you either get a buyer that loves it and then quits or gets fired, and the next buyer doesn't. So now you've been working towards that delivery date and now you're out. Or you get a company, and this just happened to me. The gentleman loved it. Not only did he love my client's product, but there were 2 claims in there that added features that they wanted to use on other products. So they were going to give him 3 licensing deals off of his patent, which I, again, was doing the dance. I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible, because he made one product to sell, and he's going to get, every time they use their stuff, they sell every day. They had one product. He got laid off. And so now we have no deal. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff in my world. So, but the nice part is if you hired me, I usually do a year contract, and I do it all for you. You know everything I know. So I always call it an Easter egg hunt. So
Well, it looks like we lost Luanne.
She'll come back.
And she's back.
The great thing is the platform, we'll probably edit this piece out real quick, but the great thing is that this platform is recording regardless of it being able to upload. So whenever you get your signal back, it'll catch up the upload, and that's why we use the software that we use to do this podcast.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah.
And everything's in 4K or in the highest resolution you can, your camera has access to. So you're not losing buffering or anything like that. It's your voice, everything's going to upload to very high quality.
Nice. Well, that I expect from you, technical man. I would think you got that all worked
It's
out.
all Joel. It's all Joel. I
Oh,
can't
there you
take it.
go. There you go. I love it.
Okay,
I love it.
so we're starting to run out of time here. So what I want to do is what I call a lightning round. All right, so I'm going to ask you 5 questions. We're going to try and keep your answers shorter. But we want the information that you give. So if you have like an idea, you like, this is a short answer, but I want to expound, just expound. But just if you have short answers, we're looking for short answers. All right. So the first one is, what is the favorite product that you've helped license?
My pantyhose deal. No doubt. Obviously, no doubt. I will tell you though, you guys, I got to go to General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, and I took a car. We had a drivetrain. So we took a lawnmower engine with some hydraulics and I got us in front of the big players, which is a pretty big deal. That was kind of how I started. And they told me it was political. General Motors told me it was political. And I would call the White House every single day looking for Al Gore because I wanted help. And the girl got to the point where she'd go, Luanne, do you not read the paper? He's out of the country. So I had a lot of fun with that product. So, but I never could close it. So sorry.
No,
All right, go
that's,
ahead.
that's
Next
perfect.
one.
That's perfect.
Thanks,
It's
man.
just a fun story. What is one pitch mistake that you see all the time?
I'm going to show you $1 million. I mean, you're going to make $1 billion off my product. Every single inventor is going to sit down and tell you, you're going to make $1 billion off this product. You want to see it. If I could just tell an inventor, please act like you are naive and you don't understand. In fact, your girl told me last night, she goes, I've already done all the research. I know how many salons there are. I go, throw that shit away. I don't want to hear that. What I want to know is, can this thing make money? And start with that and then go from there. Because if people took that piece first, then they calculated. She goes, if 50% of the people that own salons bought it. And I said, honey, people use 0.5% in their calculations. So that's the biggest thing, is never start with, you're going to make $1 billion off me. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, no, I
You
definitely
hear
have
that,
seen that. And you really know, like, someone's green behind their ears when they come in and say, oh, I have the best idea ever. Like, everyone's going to use it. It's going to go crazy. And you're just like, okay. Or they're super worried about sharing their idea. Those are like the 2 red flags that pop up immediately. It's like, okay, these people need the hand holding. I have to slow things down with them and really make sure they understand what's going on here.
That is so funny because you hit those 2. That's exactly what it is. They're either too scared to show their product or they think they've got the best thing since sliced bread. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. If you were launching a new product, and I think you've already touched on this, what would be the first thing that you do?
Oh, I would do my homework. I'd want to know what's out there. What am I competing with? And I'd make dang sure I talked to a buyer who would tell me that, look. And you guys, that's where you said this to me earlier, and you didn't say it on cameras, but I'm going to rat you out. I think you said to me, it doesn't matter whether your story is true or not. Come up with a great story. I totally believe in the story, but I always know that the truth will have a good story. So I try really, really hard in my industry to tell the honest truth, because there is so much hope that you take from people. It's not just, hey, I'm going to get you some money for your product. It's like they've been dreaming about this. So I'm taking their child and taking it. So, but there's some tricks that you can build a really good story. If we had more time, I'd tell that to you.
So the actual context of that, just so you know, so I actually agree with you. We were talking about someone else's opinion of whether that matters, because I agree with you completely. I think the truth matters.
And I knew you didn't mean to say lie, but it was just cute how you said it. So, okay.
So one piece of advice for inventors trying to go the licensing route.
One piece of advice?
Well, you've given an hour of advice, but if you could boil it down to like one thing, like, please don't forget
one thing. The number one most important thing I would give for anybody who came up with an idea that wants a licensing deal is to do that homework. Make sure it hasn't been done. Google search, Google patent search, find a patent, find a product, whatever you got to do that before you spend one dime, because I can't tell you how many people either don't do any search at all, they just go to an attorney. You guys, we're reputable. And I'm not saying there's unreputable people out there, but I've seen attorneys go, look, who am I to talk you out of trying? Well, if you don't do a search and you don't pay him for a search, he's going to file a patent and it's either going to get rejected or you're going to find out there's 6 more like it. And you've spent, you said it, you could be up to between 7 and 15 grand before and realize you have nothing, literally nothing. So that's my biggest advice is get that right. And listen, there's a trick. When you go to your patent attorney, I want you to ask your patent attorney if they like a design patent, and I want you to ask him about the claims. Okay, so when you ask your design about a design patent is almost impossible to sell. It's got no real value. The only people who make money off of it is like your phone guys, right? Because they do cool phone. Other than that, I haven't been able to sell one in my entire life. Can't tell you how many times I've been told I don't want one. That's number one. But this little patent attorney will do. Let's do a utility, but we'll throw in a design for 1,500 more. And they convince you that it's worth it. You can't do shit with that design patent. My opinion, only just saying what I know in the real world. Number 2 is there's 2 types of claims. There's a broad and a specific. When you ask your patent attorney to discuss claims with them, he better tell you you need both, a specific and a broad. Make him explain it. If he does, then he's legit. That's my test. So do with that what you will, but I am telling you, I've seen some really crappy patents and I can't show it. If I show your patent, I give them an ideal and teach them how to go around you. All right. Sorry. Quit run. Sorry.
Sorry.
That's
really, really great insight.
It's perfect because we have a lot of people who are patent attorneys and they're really good people. But what people need to know is what does the patent need to have in it in order to be able to sell it or to license it, sorry. But that's something that's not general knowledge. And I don't know this. And I've now interviewed 3, 4 patent attorneys now.
Isn't that funny? And that's what doesn't shock me. That doesn't surprise me for a minute. I'm going to teach you the trick my attorney taught me. God love him. Everett. I love him more than life, but he's no longer working. But you guys remember the pantyhose deal? He came out the door and he said to me, Luanne, you want a specific claim is the size, the shape, all that junk. You got to have some of that. But he said it's the broad claims that give it value. When I started with the pantyhose deal, and I told you 7-Eleven was interested, they called my attorney, Everett, and they said, we want to evaluate the patent. Because back then, you guys, you couldn't pull everything up on Google. And he said, if you could pay us $25,000, I will give you 2 weeks to do that. And they paid us 25 grand to evaluate it. Now, you guys, they were going to carry the product. So for them to do that, they just wanted to steal it. They just wanted to know what was in that patent. So could they go around it so they didn't have to pay for it? So they paid 25 grand to do that, and then they couldn't. And the reason why they couldn't get around it is this. He said, take a cigarette pack, a pair of pantyhose, and a pencil. And he said, shove that in your pack. He said, if you are compressing pantyhose, you're infringing. Now, that's one hell of a broad claim. And so think about that. So there was no way you would ever make something small because pantyhose is so big, you'd have to compress it. And that was his broad claim. When we did my drivetrain, the broad claim was if any ignition, any type of motor underneath it was attached to a way that had to be turned on, then you'd be stealing. That's a broad claim. That's the gift, right? That's what makes a deal that works because I just had a fabulous product and the claims were so bad. The company felt bad. They were like, if we can find one, we'll offer your client some money, but they couldn't even find one. And I'm stuck with that, right? So that's huge, you guys. That's huge. So my test works, right? My test for product developers is when you sit down with your product developer, that you wait, when you show him everything, if your product developer does not ask you what price you need this to come in at, then you run. Unless you really like him and then give him a chance. But right, Brandon, we talked about that in the beginning because when you're new, you don't always know that. And you are fabulous, so I'm glad we learned that. But that's a really big, most inventors don't know to ask that question, and that is a huge question because the whole thing is about money, guys. The whole thing is about money, period. Do we have another one? I'm sorry, go ahead.
One last question is, in what you do, what products, and I think you actually just answered this, it's not about the products, but the patents attached to the products, but what products do you see do best in licensing deals?
But that's so cool that you asked that, because we have this big joke going that some reason pet products are like so hot right now. Pet animal products got so big because of COVID, right? We all got pets, right? I It's definitely shifted some, so don't hold me to that one, but that is a world that has completely changed, right? You guys, now you can have dog food special made, custom made, and it's definitely a really cool industry. I think the better question that you like would want to ask, that I think I can answer, is the cool part about a product is the industry in which it's in, is how well are new products received. So sometimes, and how quick can you get to those companies? Okay, so what happens is, like, that's why pet product industries are so great, is because they're not these huge conglomerates, right? They're usually, there's not a lot of very strong ones, you guys. There's like Pet Made, I think, is a big one. The stores now own their own brands, Petco, whatever. But there's really not a lot of them. And to be perfectly honest, they're pretty easy to get to. So at least you got a shot at pitching. And to me, that means the world, right? You can't always close it, but you can't win if you can't pitch it. And then you have those crazy products that, are just like drivetrain. I told you I had to go to, I got in General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. I only got in because the guy at General Motors took pity on me. And then once I could tell everybody else, he was like, "You're not going to go away, are you?" And I was like, "No, I need to sell this. I wanted to feed my child." But so that's like really challenging. And like they said to me, we get 5,000 submissions a year. What makes you so great? You guys never go to the front gate. Never go to the front gate. There's no way, and never go to the top. Every inventor in the world goes, "I know the CEO, or I can get to the president." Don't go there. Their job is to say no, right? Their job is to make sure the company's profitable. It's not to spend the big budget. And even if they see it, they're still going to send it back to product development team and to the marketing team. I love to talk to the salesman. He does it for a living. He sells for a living. So he's going to answer your LinkedIn. He's going to be, because he doesn't know what he's missing, right? Salesmen don't want to miss out on a deal. And so if he loves it, he's going to do whatever he has to. And I'll never forget it. I made a phone call on my drivetrain, and I found an article. So I do all mine by research. So I found an article, and there was a man with United Technologies. You guys, United Technologies is huge, right? And they're like military stuff and everything. And so I called and left a message, and believe it or not, he called me back. And it was probably like 7:00 at night. And he calls me back, and I hear this noise as I'm trying to give him a pitch. In my head, I think the guy now at this point is like the cashier at Walmart. So I'm barely pitching, right? And all of a sudden I hear this noise, and I go, "I'm sorry, am I keeping you from something?" And he goes, "Oh no, that's just, I'm on a plane." And I was like, "Oh my God." And I said, "I'm so sorry. Should you be using your phone on the plane?" And he goes, "Listen, they gave me my own jet. They'll let me use my phone." And I was flabbergasted. Now, this was 15 years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea who I was talking to. And he put me through to the right people. So you never know. You never know. So you never know. And that's how I love LinkedIn. Hit everyone. If they work at the cashier, they know how to get to the right people, so it doesn't matter. Hit everybody. Somebody is just a nice person, and they're going to help you open the door. Because if you don't pitch it, you can't sell it.
I love that you were so persistent, because I think a lot of times people will just drop it when things get hard. And it's like being persistent, like you are the definition of persistent.
That's
And
my
that's what I
nickname,
love.
is pleasantly persistent. That's what I try to be.
I
Because you
love
guys,
that.
you
I love
can't
that.
beat people to death. You guys, I always say you got to give them 7 to 10 days to respond before you nudge them again, right? Because otherwise you're rude. But you're right. The game is total persistence. And you guys have to evaluate the feedback. If you don't evaluate the feedback and make the adjustments, then you're not going to close a deal, which is why you keep Brandon in your court all the time. He's always there, because if you call and say, "Look, I need to add this feature," he goes, "It can be done." Or he tells you no, and then just stop. Sometimes you have to let go, right?
So we're out of time, Luanne. I want to thank you so much for jumping on with us. Where can our audience get a hold of you?
Probably through Brandon. I mean, I use my personal email. So Brandon, why doesn't he reach out? Like I told you, I'm all referral. I used to do website. I used to speak all the time, but it's too time consuming for me to talk to everybody. So I think probably the easiest is just come through Brandon.
If you have a product and you want it and you want some development, or even if you want licensing, come talk to us at myproductdeveloper.com and we'll hook you up. We'll get you sorted.
Or you can go on my LinkedIn. You can hit me on LinkedIn. You can find me on
Or
LinkedIn.
we'll have Luann's LinkedIn in the description under this YouTube video. All right.
Cool.
Have a good one, everyone.
All right. Thank you.